for as good as they were back end of last season, and as much praise we heaped on them in putting together that run and in finishing third, you saw nothing of it today. And my biggest concern is all preseason, Manchester United have been linked with Jadon Sancho, with attacking players. Reguilon was linked with them at one point. And while we've been seeing that defensively, we think Manchester United needed replenishing, the stats didn't suggest as much, given that they were one of the better defensive teams in the league last year. But Maguire, albeit has his off-the-field issues to contend with. Lindelof, Zaha wishes he could play against Lindelof every single week. He was having his way with him. And quite frankly, it was embarrassing, as Stevie rightly says. This could have been 4 or 5.
How much responsibility should Solskjaer shoulder for this defeat, Jan?
Well, I think the manager will always have the final responsibility for any result, really. But we, like Shaka is saying about Lindelof, if Lindelof is the answer, this is the wrong question, whatever you ask, because Lindelof, together with Maguire, I mean, what a partnership. It's terrible how they're doing it at the moment. I think that the game against Crystal Palace now is a consequence of how the summer has been for Manchester United. It's hard to get out of that. Yes, they did well to take that third spot. They did well to get into the Champions League. Still, it's not a level where Manchester United see themselves. They've had a terrible summer with Maguire. They had that incident with Greenwood, and they have the world record in taking a long time to get players in. And I think that all sums up. It comes back to the manager. The manager will always be the one who are responsible for anything. And what I'm afraid for Solskjaer, obviously none of us will be inside the dressing room listening to the conversations between himself and the board. But of course, a manager like Ole Gunnar sees, like everybody else sees, he needs to get players in. And being the kind manager and a kind person as Ole Gunnar is, the problem is kind doesn't give you any points. And who will be the first one who will be thrown out? That is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I think that is the circle somehow he got us stuck now.
And that's what he said after the game. He said he just shows how short this team is, short in practice, short in fitness, short in preparation. But Stevie, overall, if you look at the players that Manchester United have and the players that Crystal Palace have, Manchester United is superior on paper everywhere. So why do we see such a lackluster performance, and how much of a pass do you give Solskjaer for that?
Well, I'll be honest, it's very difficult to give him a pass for today. You know, if you're unfit, then you would hope that it would show up in terms of running out of steam. You know, it happened to Wolves last weekend. You know, they hadn't had much of a pre-season. They came out the blocks and they ran out of steam. And you could visibly see them running out of steam, even sitting on watching the TV. This United side came out the blocks, sitting back on their armchairs and letting Crystal Palace come at them. That's listen. You can give 100% and run out of gas. Anybody will accept it. But Ollie shouldn't and cannot accept a team that steps on the field and just thinks it's going to happen for them, and maybe thinking they're feeling sorry for themselves because they haven't had much of a pre-season. No, it doesn't work like that. And Ollie's job when they get on the field is to be ready to go and give 100%, regardless of how fit they are or not. They should be ready to commit. And they weren't ready to commit. And if you give a side like Palace a 1-0 lead, they'll just sit tight, they're well organised, and they'll break. And absolutely, they deserve their victory today.
Shaka, it's an old adage that you've used on this show quite a bit in the past. You give players an excuse and they will take it. Ollie, obviously, as you mentioned before, pre-match, talked about the lack of preparation, talked about the lack of fitness. But everyone's on a level playing field here, and there seems to be a general consensus that isn't Solskjaer's fault, that it's not Woodward who's not bringing the sort of players that Manchester United need. But regardless of the players that they are lacking, the players that they have within that squad have got to put in much better than we saw today.
Yeah, without question. And listen, we knew that Manchester United were heavily dependent on Bruno Fernandes and what he did. And when he doesn't show up, Manchester United don't seem like they can put together a performance. Thankfully for Manchester United, we didn't see that too often until maybe last, 2 or 3 games where I didn't think Bruno Fernandes was that great last season. But this is the first game of this one. We barely mentioned him, or I barely thought about him during the course of the game. And you see the result that they got and they deserved. The United can blame Woodward for as much as they want, for as much as they like. But United fans will have you believe that Manchester United are the biggest club in English football. Now, if you look at the potential candidate for not just winning the league, for finishing top 4, I could even go as far down as top 6. Manchester United has easily had the worst transfer window out of all those clubs. This from supposedly the biggest club in English football. That speaks more than one man feeling in his job. It speaks to the fact that I don't think players are that excited about coming to Manchester United to play for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. When Gareth Bale chooses Spurs, or be it his former club, over Manchester United, and it's done so easily and seemingly, as far as we can tell, not much of a whimper out of Manchester United in that regard, it tells you all you need to know.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.